The City of Houston was an iron-hulled passenger freighter run by the Charles H. Mallory Company. She was built in 1871 and plied the routes between New York and Galveston. In 1878, she was bound from New York City to Galveston, carrying a load of passengers and freight. There were Christmas presents and supplies to settle the West. Some of the supplies included railroad wheels and ammunition. She departed New York on October 20th, 1878, and on the 22nd, she ran headlong into a fierce gale. Her pumps weren't able to stave off the incoming water, and she was beginning to founder near the tip of Frying Pan Shoals. On the morning of October 23rd, when seemingly all hope was lost, another ship, the Margaret, arrived to render aid. All passengers and crew were brought safely aboard the Margaret as the Houston sank by the stern. This trip is to the Houston's final resting place south of Frying Pan Shoals. Oak Island Light. Aquatic Safaris was anchored out over the Houston that day. We just flew right through his jet wash. We got a flame out, Mav. This is traveling up the port side, going from the stern to the bow. Just right next to the engine to our right here, that's just outside of Frank. It's Aquatic Safari's anchor right there. They were anchored into the port side of midships for those that were aboard that trip that day. Port side of midship. Up ahead is the very bow of the shipwrecked city of Houston, so we've scooted all the way on the port side from the stern to the bow. It's not that big of a shipwreck. We'll come back to this later. This is one of the most prominent features on the city of Houston. It's the engine, and just to the left of the engine there is the boiler. The boiler lies on the starboard side of the wreck, and this is the engine here. And to my left is the stern, to my right is the bow. But that's the large engine on the city of Houston that rises almost to a depth of 60 feet. It's a huge engine. Now looking down from the engine, another prominent navigational feature on the City of Houston is the propeller shaft, which comes straight out of the engine back towards the stern and goes through the shaft tunnel, which is that little pipe thing you see there. This is the steering quadrant, which attaches to the rudder below. Sorry about the expletive, but I was a little bit shocked at seeing this thing. This is the moment that I found the Goliath Grouper hiding under the rudder here. It was a bit of a shock. These photos were taken by Julie Wilsey of the Goliath Grouper. They're a little bit better than my video shows, and there's some perspective. This is the propeller shaft going into the engine here. Right there. This is where it goes into the engine. This is going between the engine to your left and the boiler to the right. Right in front of this Stingray is like a cast iron tub. There's a bunch of big porcelain around here, like almost as if this is some sort of head or bathroom. This is the largest piece of recognizable hull that's actually above the sand on the City of Houston. It's the starboard side of the bow. Like if you could cut it in a quarter, this is it. That's Aquatic Safari's mate Lloyd Brown up there hunting. Now the Houston is broken just forward of the engine, and so when you're forward of the engine on the bow section, you're on a lower section, and then there's a step up as you go to the stern section, and just in the distance here in the haze you can see that step up just prior to the engine. Of course, now we're scootering up the starboard side. The stern is behind me. There's the boiler in the engine. So we're going up the starboard side, going towards the bow. Earlier I talked about that brake. Well, this is the brake on the starboard side where it steps down, and then you're on the bow section. I think this guy got lost. It's too far south and croaked. Continuing up the starboard side, this is that intact section of bow that I showed you earlier. This is the rear end of it, the bulkhead. This is one of the railroad wheels that the Houston was carrying. You can see it there. This is a video of the step. The engine is behind me. I'm looking towards the bow, and you can see the brake here, and then the step down. So right now we're looking towards the bow. This is the bow section from a little bit higher of altitude, that intact section. What I'm getting ready to zoom in on here is on the port side of the bow. I originally thought it was maybe the windlass, but what I think it is a set of train wheels and attached to a truck. It was hard to get it because of all the fish. I kept coming back to this Goliath Grouper, but this was right before I surfaced. I was saying my goodbyes to my big pal.